You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
You just got to go out and express ourselves.
Fonte with a scooping header.
You just got to get the job done. I'm here to get the job done.
Отдача, Остин! Все-таки забил!
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Pella. Onside, 1-0. Buffon shot! Oh my word!
Unbelievable. He ran around a bit like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans. My name is Matt Markstone. I'm the host of the show. No matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, thank you for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it. This week, I am joined by Sam Cox. You can find him on Twitter at Mr. Sam E. Cox, and you can find his writing at Fresh Saints or freshsaints.com. And this week, he joined me to talk about the result at the Vitality Stadium. Of course, Saints went there, got a 0-0 draw, got a point. And the question kind of is, are we celebrating a 0-0 draw at the Vitality Stadium? Is that progress or is it 2 points dropped? And should we be winning that game? And I think that is kind of the main question right now. We're coming off of an international break. Many of the guys were away, and there were lots of things to talk about, from the center back selection to the result in and of itself to the relative kind of comfort that our defense was at. And Alex McCarthy only, I think, having one save to make throughout the day. So there's lots and lots of stuff to talk about. I'm going to keep this short because if you can't tell, I am sick. And I don't know when it happened. Last night, less than 24 hours ago, I was playing hide and go seek with my kids outside. And now I have just woken up from a nap and it's 6:00 in the evening and I don't know what's happening. Oh, well. So hopefully I'm better soon. Hopefully this doesn't sound terrible. Hopefully I don't sound like I'm sick on the recording when I was talking to Sam. We spoke Sunday morning. So I hope that it all kind of sounds nice. I'm not making sense. So let's just get to it. This is Sam Cox. His writing is good. You should read it. freshsaints.com. You can find him on Twitter at Mr. Sammy Cox. And here he is talking to me about Saints' performance at the Vitality Stadium against Bournemouth. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy it. We'd like to welcome to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, Sam Cox. You can find his writing at Fresh Saints, and you can find him on Twitter at Mr. Sam E. Cox. Sam, thanks for joining me, and I appreciate your time on this Sunday afternoon.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to speaking with you.
Yeah. And it is kind of nice that we have at least a point to talk about, and that leaves us, I'm sure, with a few talking points. But before we get to that, just let's get your history a little bit as a fan, and then we'll jump into you as a doing the sports journalism thing and writing for Fresh Saints and all that. So, and then we'll get into the game. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right. So I mean, just, are you from the Southampton area, or how are you a Southampton fan? I know sometimes we have people who write for certain places who are not fans, but they just happen to fall into a writing thing through school or whatever. But what's your history with the club?
Yeah, I've been a Southampton fan ever since I started going to football with my dad, really. I think my first real sort of memories, the first real season that I went consistently was George Burley's, well, it would have been George Burley's second full season in charge, the season when we just stayed up on the final day with Nigel Pearson coming in. So my early memories of Saints probably weren't the best football to watch, but I think that's, as I say, it's a roller coaster watching Southampton. So I've been there for a while.
Yeah. Season tickets or anything like that as a younger adult or a child?
Yeah. As I say, I'm a season ticket holder to this day. I think my first season where I was a full season ticket holder was our second season in League One.
All right.
So I started off with Alan Pardew, and then obviously Nigel Adkins came in. But prior to that, I was still going consistently with my dad. So that was the reason why we got a season ticket, because we were pretty much going to every home game anyway. So we thought we might as well get a season ticket.
Yeah, I mean, your dad's been watching the team, I assume, longer than you. So I mean, you talked to him about what's going on the last couple of years, and does he see it a bit differently than you, just because he's been around longer?
Yeah, I think so, and I think he sort of rubbed off into me. It sort of gives me a better perspective on it for myself, really. Of course, my dad's seen us play really well and seen some great teams, and he's also seen some not so good football. So yeah, I mean, when we talked about at the end, sort of the back end of last season, before it was, it looked increasingly likely that we were going to slip down into the Championship. I think he just said to me that we've seen Southampton play in League One, so it just gives you a better perspective on it. He's been there for a long time. He's seen a lot of good players and not so good players. So as I said, he's as I said, his journey's been much longer than mine. He's seen. I feel quite fortunate, to be honest, that I've seen when growing up, I've seen the rise through the divisions and seen some great football and some great players. Whereas for a long time, especially pre 2000, I think Saints in the Premier League we were battling relegation every season. So yeah, he's been there. He's been through thick and thin.
I mean, just thinking about that. I mean, you look back kind of fondly on that stuff. Then the rise through the leagues and stuff, rather than just finishing 17th or 16th on staying up on the final day.
Yeah, of course. Although when you're younger and you're going to football sort of for the first time, it's not for you. It's a new experience, and whatever you see on the football pitch you're in awe of it, really, despite it might not have been the best football and the best players we've watched. So the fact that I can't quite remember how old I was when we sit down into League One, but for me that was just football at the end of the day. But as you start getting older, obviously the attachment grows, and from when I really got into Southampton, I think it was sort of, we're playing good football first on Alan Pardew, obviously the memories of the Johnson's Paint Trophy final. So I think I was about 10 or 11 when we went there, and we went and won the cup, and then obviously the back-to-back promotions, and then we took to last the Premier League pretty well, and now it's only been the sort of past couple of seasons where it's sort of gone back downhill. So my memories of Southampton really has always been positive, and so that's why for me now it is for everyone, for every Saints fan, it's hard to watch the club at the moment because of how how good we were not too long ago, but. Right. As I said, my memories of Saints have always been positive because I've always seen us been doing pretty well.
Yeah, and I've only been watching since kind of we got back to the Premier League. So like everything else before that is obviously it's history and you can read about it, but it's not. Yeah. I wasn't living it. I wasn't I didn't have this attachment to the team that went down and then everything that happened there. But I mean, sometimes I think that it's easy for me to forget what life was like before the Premier League and what it was like to get back there, as much as I try to remind myself. And sometimes I think that we get caught up in it. And, sometimes when I talk to people who have been through it, they kind of say, we've gone through this and it's going to be okay. And yeah, it's a change. And, but like life goes on, the team will still play football. People will still go. Some people will disappear, but that's, maybe that's okay. And, I don't know. So yeah, but I mean, I think if we put in a couple more performances like yesterday's first half, maybe we stay up, but we're still struggling a bit, I would say.
Yeah, I think the potential is there in the squad. But the problem is and it's been our problem really for the past couple of seasons. We've shown glimpses of quality and we've shown glimpses of what we can do on the field, but it's just a case of being consistent and having the right quality. As this is always difficult when you've got quality and it is hard for clubs like us to keep hold of our best assets. And that's sort of, again, part and parcel of it, really. That your best players will go on to bigger clubs. So I think, to be honest, at the moment, we've got the right ideas on the pitch, but I just think we lack a little bit of that quality and I think confidence as well. I think we lack a lot of confidence in front of goal. I think that's what definitely let us down yesterday. Yeah. And what's been letting us down across the season so far.
Yeah. So if I can ask, just like, how did you go from being a fan and all that stuff and going with your dad to games to wanting to become or getting into sports journalism? Like, where does that kind of fit in?
For me, I think, as I say, I've always been into football. I've played it, not a very high standard, but I've played it ever since I was young as well. So I've always had that sort of love for the game. And I wanted to my life to revolve around football and growing up, and you find out about your ability in different things. And I found writing and writing about football, writing about sport is something that I found I did quite well. And I think it's just for me, it is one of those things that I took to well and I enjoyed it, and then once you find out when you're growing up that you can do this as a career and there's jobs that revolve around this, then for me it was a no-brainer to follow that path and try and make a career out of it.
And I mean, how's that gone so far? You enjoying the stuff? I mean, is there a lot of stuff that you didn't really realize that was going to be part of it that you're learning about now?
Yeah, of course. There's a lot of aspects to make sure that you're doing the right thing. There's a lot of legalities with it that I'm sort of just learning about now here at university. But again, it's there's a lot of aspects to it that you don't realise that it covers really. So yeah, as I said, the legalities, you want to make sure you're doing the right thing, and reputation's a big thing. You want to make sure that you become a reliable source for people to want to use you and use your work.
Yeah. I mean, now you write for Fresh Saints and you help run the website and all that stuff with Aiden. Of course, I think everybody, I think most people that listen to this podcast will know of him and his work over previous seasons. But he's moved on to be employed by Arsenal, so he's out of the picture for now. But I mean, you've come. How did you arrive at Fresh Saints versus landing at maybe one of the other outlets for writing?
Well, me and Aiden both went to the same college in Southampton a couple of years ago, and for me we both went on a week's work experience at the Daily Echo, and I just contacted him through that because we had a mutual friends at college, so I sort of contacted him through there because I knew he ran Fresh Saints, and I knew it helped him a lot, and the teachers that we shared also were sort of nudging me towards that. So I just sent him a message and wondered if I could get involved, and he was more than happy to use my articles. And to be honest with you, I owe him quite a lot to be in the position that I'm in right now.
As a journalist now, and you're covering Southampton, is it difficult to cover the team that you like because you have to be kind of objective and you're sitting in the press box, you can't cheer, you can't do that stuff, or do you not have a hard time separating that stuff out?
Sometimes it can be difficult because as a fan you're emotionally invested into the club and into the players. So for me, sometimes you have to take a step back, following a result or following a situation, and maybe let your emotions die down for half an hour or so before you start writing. Because sometimes, as you say, it can become really opinionated, and as most football fans know, your feelings immediately after a football match involving your club is more heat at the moment than what you actually feel a few hours later. So sometimes, yeah, it is difficult, especially sort of last season as well, when under Pellegrino, when it wasn't going well at all and we were really struggling. It was hard to separate your feelings and trying to get it into an objective and sort of balanced articles. But as I say, I think sometimes you just got to let the heat of the moment emotions die down, and then you can really get an objective view of it.
Yeah. I think yesterday was a little bit easier to do that because I feel like there weren't these big, huge. I mean, there were a couple of moments where we probably should have scored and probably should have taken some points, but I think overall I'm relatively happy with how it all went. I mean, we got a point away. Granted, it was at Bournemouth, but that's a team that was in sixth place going into yesterday's matches. So I'm not going to be super upset. And I just want to ask you one more thing about journalism and stuff like that before we actually get to the game. You ever been in the press box and accidentally cheered? Any of that stuff ever happened to you?
Fortunately for me, no. Luckily not. I think sometimes you are desperately trying to check the scores, and sometimes it's hard not to. But luckily for me, I haven't fallen into that trap yet. I'm sure maybe one day it will happen, and I'll be getting some evil glares from the other journalists in the press box. But luckily for me, it hasn't quite happened.
I mean, the press box pretty friendly place. Everybody kind of help each other out, or is it hostile and everybody's trying to?
Yeah, I think so. I think to be perfectly honest, the experience I've had in press boxes, I haven't been in loads. Haven't really done that as much as I'd like so far. I've done it a few times, but I think for me as a trainee journalist and being 19 in the age that I am, I think from my experiences, the journalists in there do help you out, and they do recognise that that you are, you're still training to become that, and they've all been in the situation that we're in now. So I think it is a friendly environment. Well, from my experience, it has been anyway.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, you want to jump into the match now and talk about all that stuff? I mean, going into yesterday, obviously coming off the back of an international break, a lot of the squad was away, but we saw 3 of the back 4, actually maybe 4 of the back 5, if you want to count McCarthy, who had to pull out through injury. They were all around for the international break. So Vestergaard doesn't get a start, but Stevens and Hoot are that partnership. And I know that Hoot's come under a lot of criticism this season. But you have Bertrand, Hoot, and Stevens, who, if you just look at the quote from Hughes, he says probably some were a little surprised by the selection, but it was a consequence of the really good work in the week. Wes, Ryan, and Jack understood totally what we were trying to do. And I mean, to you, is that back 4, or the back 5, is that a justified selection from Hughes? And maybe now that we've seen them play, I think it was totally, I think they performed just adequately or just fine. But going into yesterday, were you surprised or were you worried by the selection of that back 4 at all?
Prior to kickoff, to be honest with you, yes, I travelled up to Everton and watched the league game, and Hoyt and Stevens were the back 2 there, and they didn't have their best afternoon, to say the least. They were being caused all types of trouble from Theo Walcott and Gylfi Sigurdsson and Richarlison especially. So when I looked at the team sheet prior to kickoff, yes, I was a little bit sceptical. I'm quite a big fan of Jan Bednarek, and at the time I was wondering what he had to do to stay in the team. But as you say, at full time, the selection was justified. I thought Hoyt and Stevens, that's the best I think I've seen them both play for Saints, to be honest. They really nullified any Bournemouth attack, and as you say, as Hugh said, they execute the game plan perfectly. Yeah,
I mean, looking at the rest of the lineup, I think Højbjerg and Lemina are going to start in midfield. I think that fits Hughes' style a little bit more, and they've grown so much together from the first match that they played, which was in a 4-4-2, which was I think back West Ham of last season when we got done 3-0. But they got overrun in that match, and it wasn't a great showing. And of course we switched formations after that. But I think this season they've both kind of understood their role, and they've worked well together. The choice of Elyounoussi and Redmond, I think, is fine out wide. I think they are the 2 best wide players that we have. Danny Ings is probably always getting picked. And then you have the one other striker selection where you have Long, Austin, and Gabbiadini kind of all vying for that. And in my opinion, nobody really taking charge of that and grabbing a hold of that spot. But I mean, what did you make of Austin being selected over Gabbiadini or Long yesterday?
I was quite pleased with it, to be honest. I think Bournemouth is one of those games which you need a player with the characteristics of Austin on and off the pitch. I think he understands the sort of the importance of the game. We all know it's not a derby match, so to speak, but there is added fire with the game against Bournemouth ever since they've sort of come up into the Premier League. And I think his personality matches that sort of game. He always seems to have joy at the Vitality as well. He scored there last season. So yeah, to be perfectly honest, I thought it was justified. I thought it was the right selection. As the game went on, though, I think it was the right call to take him off. I think we're stuck in a position now with the other striker. Obviously, Ings, you say, is going to be the starting striker up top with another pair. I think we're sort of stuck in a mindset now of how we also want to play with the secondary striker. Austin obviously provides a bit more of a target man type of football, whereas Long and Gabbiadini offer runs in behind. And I think right now we're sort of struggling to choose sort of which way we're gonna approach games going forward.
Jumping back to Hoot for just a second.
Yeah.
Do you think the fact that he is really the only truly left-footed center back that we have, you think that has helped him kind of stay in the lineup maybe when he didn't deserve it? And based off yesterday's performance and some of the performances that he's had recently, do you think he's starting to nail down that spot? Like he's going to be the kind of the steady center back in there, and that other spot next to him is going to be the one that rotates through?
I think if he consistently performs like he did yesterday than for sure. To be honest, I think his performances this season have been questionable. I think he can be quite vulnerable at the back. He doesn't boast the best pace in the world, and I think sometimes that's his sort of undoing, to be honest. But as I said yesterday, it was again one of his best performances for the club. I think that's a really interesting point with the left foot, because him on the left with Bertrand, both left-footed players, I think that has helped Hoyt. As I said, if he puts in performances consistently like he did yesterday, then there's no reason why he shouldn't nail down that spot. Yannick Vestergaard's come in and it's taken him longer to adapt to the Premier League as he probably would have liked and we would have liked. Yeah. So there is places up for grabs, and as I said, if Hoyt can consistently perform like that, like he did yesterday, then there's no reason why he can't be the rock to that centre, the rock to the back four.
Yeah. Just looking, I guess, at the match yesterday, I mean, there was a really opening minute, really decent chance for Bournemouth to kind of get ahead of us. And it was just I think all of us looking at the lineup were a little bit worried. Even I tend to try to be positive about it, but I can't help but worry about how the direction of the team. And, you start, maybe it's just reading through all of the articles and Twitter and all that stuff all the time where it starts to get into your head and kind of shape your view of what's going on. But, you start to look at the direction of the club and the players that have gone and everything else and the stuff of the manager. And then you come into that. And then the very first minute they have that chance. I don't know. I kind of thought we could be in for a really, really long afternoon. And I think most people predicted that they were going to beat us. And I think we would have all been happy with a point going into yesterday.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. It wasn't the best of starts, and Bournemouth sort of caught us cold, really. I think they came out flying out the blocks. And yeah, it was a great chance, arguably their best chance of the afternoon. And really, for us, it was quite fortunate that we didn't go 1-0 down at that moment. But I think the fact that didn't go in, the back four then from there grew in confidence and felt that they could deal with anything that Bournemouth sort of threw at them.
Yeah. I mean, from there, the next kind of 10 minutes were pretty open, but not very many goal threats, I guess. I think Bournemouth's first shot on target wasn't until deep into the second half, and it was a header from Ake, I think, and it was right at McCarthy, thankfully. But I mean, for as much as I kind of enjoyed watching the players run at one another and lose the ball and run at each other in misplaced passes and all that stuff, there wasn't, if you kind of look at the highlights of the if you're doing the minute by minute report, there's not a lot to put down there. It's kind of, there's a couple of injuries, there's a couple of stoppages, and then yellow cards, and then halftime. But I mean, in that first half, what kind of stood out to you in terms of our performances that maybe made it different from some of the other things that we've seen over recent weeks?
I think, as I said, the game plan was to try and stifle Bournemouth and prevent them from playing their sort of expansive football. And I think that the fact that we were on their first touch, we didn't really give them a lot of space to play those passes. I think that was the encouraging sign for me. And I also thought for a stage in the first half with Redmond and Bertrand, we did look dangerous going forward, and it did look positive. For me, the overriding thing which stood out for me in terms of Saints' performance was the fact that we were creating chances, but again, it was just the fact that we couldn't put the ball in the back of the net, which was our problem. Yeah.
I mean, there were a couple of times where we had strikers through, or people playing people through, or opportunities to put crosses in where we kind of just failed to really, there was an instance, it was the second half, but Cedric got clear. He had two people kind of drop back off, just off of the penalty spot, I think. And he chose to put the ball kind of straight across the 6-yard box to get cleared. And it's just things like that where we're just not quite, I don't know, maybe we're just not quite all on the same page, Yeah,
it's just the final ball, really, isn't it? I think we can get into those areas, but then when it comes down to the killer pass or the killer strike, we're just lacking really in that department.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, looking at a lot of the chances that we had, I mean, Højbjerg, I think 2 or 3 times yesterday took a shot for a volley from well outside the area, and I was kind of looking back at his at some of the goals we've scored, and I think we've only scored 6 goals. One of them's from the penalty spot. One of them's kind of Ings kind of, it dribbles home off of a corner. Then there's that one from open play where ball went over the defender's head and he kind of outside of his right foot pushed it past the keeper or through the keeper's legs actually. But then you have the wonder strikes from Højbjerg and Bertrand, and then the counter-attacking goal against Crystal Palace, and that's it. So you look at you're talking 2/3 of or a third of our goals have come from these kind of strikes outside the area. So I maybe don't as much care if Højbjerg's trying that over and over and over. And he forced the keeper into 2 saves yesterday, I think. So overall, I guess I just have to be happy with the fact that he's got the confidence, I guess, to go ahead and have a go from there.
Yeah, we know we've got it. He's got it in his locker. So for me, the fact that he's trying those shots, for me, it's encouraging because we know that he's got the ability to strike the ball well from outside the box. And as you say, yesterday, it gave Begovic something to think about on 2 of those occasions, and one of them very nearly crept in. So as I say, I think I quite like the players. If it opens up, then have a go. I think I'd rather us do that than turn around and try and walk it in the net, which we've been guilty of sometimes this season. Yeah.
And it looks much better when Man City or Arsenal do it, I think. There's just something about the way it happens that it just looks nice. But I think you hit on a good point when you said, we really did a good job of closing down the space and not allowing Bournemouth to get their heads up and play the football that they wanted to play. And they looked frustrated. Some of their fans were tweeting me and saying, you've frustrated us today. And that was, we did a good job. And I think that if that's the game plan, that's great. And I don't want to say this, but I think that some people will say, yes, but should we be trying to go out and stifle Bournemouth? Is that really the type of team we are? And I think that the reality is that is the type of team that we are right now, where we are going to struggle to impose ourselves, but we can still get points and try to win games by doing this. And I think that you got to start and build from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. I think, as you said, the reality is that we are a bottom half Premier League side now, and going into the game, Bournemouth sat 6th in the table. There is a worry when you go into a game and you alter your style of play to match the opposition. But as I said, I think you go into a game, you've got to be smart about approaching games. And the fact that Bournemouth are free scoring at the moment and they haven't lost at home all season, and sometimes you have to sort of compromise your game plan to make sure that you get something from the game. And I think had we taken the chances that we created, then it would have been a perfect performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I think that kind of, in my mind, the highlights for the first half are over. If I missed anything you want to talk about, let me know. But I think that going into halftime, we have to be happy with the performance. I think the first half, we played better than the second half. But that's because Bournemouth would have gone in and made some adjustments to try to, work through the pressure that we were providing. And Lamina gets hurt early in the second half, which I think it causes us to change our game plan just a little bit. Romeu wasn't on the bench, so it means that Armstrong comes in, which we'll talk about in a second. But the highlights for me are the positives to take from that are that we did a really good job of stifling them. We created a lot of kind of half chances, maybe. We need somebody to finish those. But also then Hoot and Stevens, I think, played really, really well. And I think they did kind of everything that we would have asked of them. And I think maybe there was 1 or 2 instances where they got beat for a header where King kind of wiggled free, but he didn't make us pay for it. So I think we just have to be happy with that. I think we could have maybe gotten some of our wide players in the game a bit more, but once again, I think that goes along with the game plan where they had other responsibilities and it wasn't always, get kind of to the touchline and then drive forward. So I think we'll work on that as we go forward. But anything else in the first half stand out to you before we kind of move on?
I think just the best chance that we created in the first half was the ball through to Charlie Austin. As it comes over, I'm not too sure if he's anticipating the defender getting there before he does, but as it falls to him, I think for me as a fan, it's easy for me to say. I think he should have struck it first time, and then maybe you'd have found more joy because he's got the ability to do that. But in his mind, he wanted to try and take it around the goalkeeper and slot it in, and unfortunately, his touch was too heavy and it took him out of play. But I think, as you said, the first half we executed the game plan well. Hoyt and Stevens were complementing each other well when one was going, one was covering, and Stevens sort of backed up Hoyt because Stevens, I believe, possesses a yard or two more of pace than Hoyt. So I said, the back line will complement each other well. And as you say about the wide players, I think Hughes was trying to implement the same sort of game plan against Crystal Palace. That was try and do your defensive duties and then try and catch them on the counter attack, and that almost came off for us a couple of times in the first half.
Yeah. That chance for Austin. I mean, do you think that it's just I feel like I've seen him do that before, where it's just the touch isn't quite there, and I don't know if it's match fitness, if it's just not being in that position because he hasn't played a ton of games or had a ton of opportunities this season. And I know that when he came in, he was going to be our goal scoring savior, and last year he scored a lot of goals that played an important role for us in getting points. And then he's been plagued by injuries. But do you think that with time, with more chances, do you think he's going to be better than that? Or do you think that's really what Charlie Austin is, and the amount he's playing is going to be what we get from him going forward?
I think there's that, as we said earlier, there's that secondary striker place that is up for grabs. And at the moment, the other three strikers haven't been able to get a run of games in front of goal alongside Danny Ings, and I think it all plays a part. I think Austin hasn't got the match fitness because he hasn't played the minutes. I think it could also be a confidence thing in front of goal. So I think it all sort of adds up. But as you say, I think we know Austin's got the finishing ability. It's just at the moment he's not quite getting into the right positions to make sure that counts. And then when he is in the right positions, it's almost sort of he gets caught in two minds: where to place the shot or how to make sure it's an easy tap in, like we saw yesterday. But as you say, I think there is a secondary striker position available, and Austin should really be the man to grab hold of it.
Yeah. Going in the second half, once again, I was feeling pretty good about the first half. Slightly worried about the second half because that Bournemouth are going to make some changes, and you just wonder if we're going to be able to do that for the second half. But I'll be honest that I didn't really feel like sometimes when we play some of the big teams, when we played Man City last year under Pellegrino, we got through the first half and we were feeling pretty good. But then you just have that kind of worry hanging over your head, like we're eventually going to concede, like this is not going to last. I didn't necessarily feel that way yesterday. I felt like we were in control enough, and even during the second half when Bournemouth had again the majority of possession, I don't know. I never really felt like they were going to score. Like I never really felt threatened. I felt like if it would have gone in, it would have been kind of one of those ones where you kind of throw your hands up and say, well, I guess that happens. But I don't know if I'm alone in that feeling, or if you're feeling the same way, or what was your kind of going into the second half? Were you worried, or did you have that kind of feeling of dread, like you thought they were going to score?
To be honest with you, no, I didn't. I'm sort of the same with you. I thought the way that we played and saw out the first half, I was quietly confident that we'd continue to do that. There is always that hanging doubt over the Saints over the past season that I don't know where to put the finger on it. Is it a concentration thing at the start of halves that let us down? But as I said, I didn't feel like that was going to be a problem yesterday because of how well we sort of dealt with Bournemouth in the first half. And to be honest, Bournemouth didn't make it hard for the back line to deal with them. I thought Bournemouth had a bit of an off day yesterday, and Saints were able to just control the game pretty well.
Kind of right at the beginning of the second half, Lamina goes up to try to win a header. He comes down, lands on I think it's his left leg, with it kind of straight in it. I don't know if you saw it in the stadium or if you've seen as many replays as I have, but it looks like it almost hyperextends just a little bit. Not nearly as bad as anything like, if you remember Zlatan having that a couple of seasons ago where it clearly went. He tries to go on, so I don't think it's anything is maybe, I can't say that, I'm not a doctor, but like hopefully nothing is completely torn, or the ACL and meniscus isn't done, but like he tries to go on, he can't really, you watch him kind of limp around, and knowing that I knew he came off, and I had to watch the second half kind of after the fact for some of it, but like knowing he comes off, I was kind of trying to pay attention to his movement and stuff like that, and he didn't quite look up to speed. He looked like he was nursing it a little bit, and eventually he gets pulled off. I mean, if he is out, does that, I mean, what does that mean for the team in terms of formation, of kind of that midfield partnership? And is that a big worry for you if he misses time, is there significant time with that injury?
I think so. Yeah, I think the partnership him and Højbjerg have formed has been probably our main strength this season. As you said, when he came off yesterday, the game sort of changed for us. I think we definitely missed him when he wasn't there. And I think if he is out for a significant amount of time, then it is a worry, because we don't really have another midfielder in the same mould as him. For me, he can do sort of both the defensive work and prove an asset going forward. Whereas you look at Aurel Romeo, he's more of a defensive midfielder whose qualities are sitting in front of the back line and providing defensive stability. Whereas and Stuart Armstrong again is more of an attacking midfielder who's got the capabilities going forward, but not quite the defensively. So we've got sort of a player in Lamina who has both of those sort of aspects to his game, and it's hard to replace someone like that when we haven't got the same types of players who can fill that role.
I mean, if he's out, and I hope he's not, and I'll be honest, and doing the almost stalker thing where you look at his Instagram, you look at the mood he's in at home, you look at all that stuff, and he seems to be happy. And granted, I can't understand anything he says because he speaks mostly in French. I think it's French. I don't know. I could be wrong. But he seemed to be okay afterwards. So we'll see kind of how that goes, and I'm sure the pain will be there today or not. And we'll find out more as time goes on. But if he's out, to accommodate for that, do you change formation maybe? Because I'm not sure that Romeu fits in a 4-4-2. I'm not sure Armstrong fits in a 4-4-2. If you go 4-3-3 and have Romeu hold, and then Højbjerg and Armstrong push a little bit forward, or if you go 4-2-3-1, you have Højbjerg and Romeu slightly deeper and Armstrong ahead. I mean, what would you want to see from them? And of course, at that point, we're sacrificing a striker or a forward. So, I mean, in your mind, like what might Hughes do to accommodate for the loss of Lamina, if indeed he's out, and this may prove to be all kind of useless by the time the episode actually comes out. So I apologize to everybody if that's the case.
Personally, I think a 4-3-3 could work well with maybe Romeo and Højbjerg sitting, and then you give Armstrong the freedom to go forward, and then that can almost accommodate for the second striker. Because I thought in pre-season that Armstrong was probably our brightest player. Mm-hmm. It's taken him a little while to adapt to the Premier League, and he's found chances few and far between so far. I think he nursed a bit of an injury after the opening game against Burnley, so I think that has given him a bit of a setback as well. But as you say, I think a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 even could accommodate that. I say if Armstrong features in it, then it allows him to push forward, and then you've still got the defensive stability of Romeo and Højbjerg behind him. As you said, the striker situation at the moment is still a situation that we're trying to solve. So even if we had to sacrifice playing two up top, I don't think that would be sort of the worst thing to happen, because it isn't quite sticking up front at the moment with the 4-4-2 in terms of the strikers. But of course, in the 4-4-2 that we're playing at the moment, the midfield is working well. So that's something Hughes will work on. But as you say, hopefully Lamine won't be out. But if he is, I think a 4-3-3 could work effective.
I think one thing that would do as well is give Elyounoussi and Redmond a chance to start a little further forward, And I watch the United States men's national team over international breaks because I'm from the United States. I'm American. I like watching them for that reason. But for the same reason that I don't watch a lot of baseball or other sports here, it's on at an awkward time. And I know like evening time, these Nations League games for you guys, it's on during the evening. But for me, it's middle of the day and I'm at work and I can just put it on and I can listen. And so I try to pay attention. I try to watch some of our players if I can. And so watching Elyounoussi, he's playing further forward for Norway. He looks better coming in from the left. His cousin, who plays kind of more of an attacking midfielder role, I think, he looked pretty good. And the goal that Elyounoussi scored for Norway, I don't know. I think we can do that. We should be able to do that, but maybe he just needs to be given license to be a little bit further forward, and we'll see. So hopefully, like you said, Lamine is still in, but we'll see how that goes. But I was kind of looking at, the job that Long and Gabbiadini did when they came on, because we made that kind of double substitution for, two forwards for two forwards. And I don't know, like Long did a pretty good job. He got by Ake on one and kind of fired a shot in that probably wasn't ever going to go in, but it was causing some trouble. And then he had the knockdown to Armstrong, who just, I don't know, he just missed it, and that was one of those things where like that was probably the clearest chance we had, and it doesn't go down as like a very clear chance. I don't think it shows up that way because he didn't even get a shot off.
Yeah, I think as you say, Long, for me, it sounds weird to say, but he's sometimes not in the squad to provide the goals. I know it sounds weird saying that as a striker, but his work rate, when you're playing alongside another striker, his work rate and his pressing can cause problems for defences. I think him and Danny Ings work really well together away at Crystal Palace. Because for me, Long, of course, isn't the biggest player, but he can rise so highly when he jumps to win the ball. He can always act as that sort of flick on for balls in behind. I think we saw that in Ings' goal away to Crystal Palace. Yesterday, again, it proved to be the case with him and Gabbiadini. So with that knockdown, he rose highest, and Armstrong was unfortunate. Not sure if it was he didn't sort his feet out in time, or it just eluded him a little bit, or he wasn't expecting Long to win it. But that's what Long can provide. And I think although yes, his goal scoring record isn't great. He adds a different dimension to that forward line.
I mean, at the end of the day, we get a point away, and I think most of us will take that. I think most people will take that at any point. A point away in the Premier League is a decent result. It is Bournemouth, and so like it's not a derby like we said, but there is maybe something a little bit extra. But they've definitely been the team in form compared to us. So I think going out of yesterday, I think it's mostly positive for us. Maybe a few chances that we didn't take, but that's kind of been our story this year. And at least I think in my mind, we shored up things defensively a little bit, and I can be happy with that. Is that kind of your feeling as we go into next week, which is a big game against Newcastle and going to be, I don't want to say a relegation 6-pointer, but the truth is both teams are in the bottom half of the table, the bottom part of that second half, and it's going to be kind of an important match for us in terms of what happens, especially with Newcastle kind of going through what they're going through with their manager and their owner and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think, as I said before the game yesterday, would have taken a point and coming away from the game disappointed that we didn't come away with all three. Sort of tells a story of how well we played, and I said it was important to get something from that game going into the game next week. As you say, it is early in the season, but the game against Newcastle can sort of set the tone for the rest of the season in terms of where we're going to be, where we're going to be battling either to stay in the division, or if we can push on and try and consolidate a mid-table place. There was only positives taken from the game, really. I was happy with the job that the back line did. The wide men did their job well, and then they looked threatening going forward. And then it was not like we didn't create any chances, as you say. Armstrong probably our best chance of the afternoon, as he couldn't quite direct an effort at goal. So as you say, yeah, next week is a massive game, and it is important that we got something from yesterday to take into it. But I say the point yesterday will only be good if we can get 3 points on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance that if we play like we did, I think we should be able to do that. But we will. I guess we'll see. One of the things I generally ask for at the end of matches is sometimes I was trying to figure out how to do this, and sometimes I do the number of goals scored, sometimes I do the number of added minutes, but there were so many yesterday with the injuries and the stoppages that I felt that was too much. So I just asked for 3 words to kind of sum up the match, and some of the people came in. One guy says Saints can defend. AJ Reardon, who also sent us a question that we'll answer in a second, says scoring is overrated. One guy says not good enough. Caroline Emerson says better game today. And Jay says we'll take that. And then we got some from Instagram as well. It says it was all right, which I think is pretty fine. Should have won, which I can also understand. This guy says haven't scored in the last 4 Premier League games, worrying. I just did like a math gif because that's not 3 words. need more goals, which I think is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And better than expected was another one.
Yeah.
And the last one was well-earned point. And I think all of those are fair. And I think think that kind of goes along with what we're at. I mean, obviously it's always nice to win, but I think that going into yesterday, if we really try to be objective about it, we'll take it, we'll move on.
Yeah.
And we try to take some of those positives into Newcastle and maybe work a little bit more on crossing this week. Maybe I don't want to see as many goals as us scoring from the 3 yards out against the under 18s keeper, but I'd like to see us maybe crossing the ball and getting it a little better, because that was pretty poor yesterday. But anyway, we do have one question if we want to go ahead and answer that, and before we knock it off. And I'll just say, like, it looks like we're going to be shorter than normal. And I just think that's because that's kind of the way the game went. There's no reason to belabor everything. It's kind of nice to be able to talk freely and not feel like we're weighed down by all of this extra stuff. So AJ Reardon, who is at Fred Lazaro 5 on Twitter, says, what is it going to take for the offense to run? Today the midfield was strong and Hoot and Stevens were solid, but the attack is just missing that one spark. Where will that come from? He also says the Red Sox suck. I'm an Astros fan. So they lost to the Red Sox, which is my brother's team. And so we didn't talk for like a week. And now he's happy because now that LA's won, we're just 3 hours from a potential World Series game if we can get there. And I think crossing my fingers that we may be able to get tickets for something less than the $900 or $1,000 they were going for earlier. So we'll see. But I mean, for you, I mean, is there anything that can be done? I mean, we have the players we have. Does the formation change help that? We talked about maybe getting Armstrong and playing behind the striker a little bit, or what might you think will kind of cause us to kick on that way?
Personally, I think it has to come from midfield. I think in personnel, I think we lack sort of an attacking midfielder. Obviously, we signed Armstrong, and as I said earlier, an injury and taking time to adapt to the Premier League has sort of hindered him. But as you say, I think it comes from, first and foremost, it's got to come from the strikers as well. As you said, we haven't scored in the past 4 games. Chances have been created, and we just haven't been able to put it in the back of the net. But I think, as you say, a formation change to accommodate an attacking midfielder could do the trick. As I said, the 2 up top at the moment hasn't worked in terms of scoring goals. So if you drop one of the strikers off and then play an attacking midfielder, that could help with the goals coming from midfield. But that's something that Saints have struggled with for a few years, ever since we sort of lost, maybe even going back to when we even lost Adam Lallana in that season where Pochettino left as well. I think that's been a problem for Saints for a few years now, that we haven't seen enough goals from midfielder. But as you say, I don't think we have the players in the squad at the moment who can do that apart from Armstrong. I think if you look at some of the players that we have in midfield, they're all sort of similar types of midfielders. Like we've got Højbjerg, Lamina, James Ward-Prowse, Stephen Davis, those types of midfielders who can do sort of the job in the centre of the park, but aren't really flourishing in the opposition box.
Yeah. I think I wholeheartedly agree with that. So we'll just have to see kind of how that all works out. And like I said, it might be Hughes' hand might be forced a bit if Lamina is indeed out. Although I sincerely hope he's not, because I think he has been great. Although I tweeted it yesterday when he got injured that he has to come off, and somebody said, well, he's a w***er. And I was like, well, I just won't respond because I don't know how to respond to that without being rude. So, Sam, I want to thank you for coming on the show, first of all.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Do you have any other thoughts on anything, or we should also tell people where they can find your writing and stuff like that again. So if you want to do that and then add any final touches before we wrap this up, that'd be great.
Yeah. So again, at Fresh Saints on Twitter is where you can find most of my work, most of my writing for about Southampton anyway. And my personal Twitter is at Mr. Sam Ecox, as we said earlier. I think we covered everything, to be honest. I think the club at the moment is in a position now where we know we're a bottom half side. We know we've got potential. It's just now making sure the players can show their quality and the commitment to the club to make sure we're not in another relegation battle come May.
Yeah. I was looking ahead to some of the fixtures, and this run to the next international break doesn't look kind.
No.
Theoretically, having gotten the point yesterday, to be completely honest, like you're looking at it was a possibility of not having any more points, of having 3 more points maybe, when these fixtures are said and done. Then now that we have the point yesterday, maybe you get 4 or 5. I don't know. It could be rough, but if we play like we did yesterday, I think we'll find ourselves in a much better position going forward than the way we have been, maybe.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a platform to build on now from yesterday. I think the positive signs were there. And it's now, as you say, the run isn't kind to us, and our start of the season on paper, you would have said we should have more points than we currently do, and that's the most disappointing thing,
right?
From my perspective. But as you say, I think we've shown that we've got the quality. I think that our performance against Leicester prior to sort of we scored, we played. I thought it was one of our best performances for a long time. And it was just one of those things that Saints couldn't hold out a lead, and that's been sort of our Achilles heel for the past year or so.
All right, man. Well, thank you again for doing that, for coming on the show and just having a chat. And I appreciate your willingness to do that. And we'll put links to Fresh Saints and the Fresh Saints Twitter and the website and everything in your profile in the show notes so people can check that out. A nice, easy click. Hopefully we'll do this again.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
And that does it for this episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Special thanks this week goes out to Sam Cox, who joined me. You can find him on Twitter at Mr. Sam E. Cox, and you can get his writing along with the writing of a number of other talented individuals at freshsaints.com. You can follow them at Fresh Saints. The links to everything are in the show notes. This show is partnered with the Southampton page. You can find them on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The content they put out is worth viewing. So follow them on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. The links are in the show notes. You will not be disappointed. That I know for sure. The artwork for the show is done by Matt Beeling of the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. For all your matchday edits, polls, competitions, and more, be sure to check out the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. Matt, who runs the page, has done a fantastic job. He has been a guest on this show. He's been super helpful from the very beginning. I could not have done this without him, so thank you, Matt. Go check it out. If you want to follow this show on social media, you can. We're on Twitter and Instagram at SFCDELL_IVERY. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/SFC Delivery. There is no underscore in the Facebook address. You can email the show at southamptondelivery@gmail.com. And that pretty much is all the ways you can contact us. If you've enjoyed this episode, but you haven't done so yet, you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Acast, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. If you're not sure how to do that, send me a message. I will help you. That's my job. If you've already subscribed, make sure you tell your friends about the show, if you've enjoyed it, of course. And if you really want to do me a solid, you can leave a review on iTunes. That helps a ton. All music for the show comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games, and the end of show credits that you're listening to right now is Aim is True by Poddington Bear. Saints host Newcastle at home next week. It is a big game. We need 3 points, so hopefully the boys can do that. But no matter what, until next time, remember that together, we march on.